On this episode of Three Bro Sports Podcast, we're going over the AFC NFC Championship games. It was a fun one, especially for my 49ers. We're keeping it simple this week. We actually have Jay Stephans coming on, our first other podcaster coming on to the show as well. He'll be going over the games with us, and it's time for us to get more involved with you guys as we actually have a Q&A session. We got a few questions, we got a few answers for you. But first,
shut up and sit down.
And welcome back to another Three Bro Sports Podcast, the podcast of three college students who can talk about sports forever and ever and ever. I'm Connor.
I'm Calvin.
I'm Micah.
Okay, that's an interesting one this week. Okay, I like that one. And today we got a special guest coming on. We got Jay Stephans, host of the Jay Stephans show. You can find it at Spotify, Anchor, Google, anywhere. The same platforms that we use. Jay, how you doing today?
Pretty good, man. How you guys doing? Thanks for having me.
No problem. Thanks for coming on. I'm doing great. How about you guys?
Doing just fine.
Doing just peachy.
Now, we needed to bring some extra guests on for the show to be able to go over the AFC, NFC championship games, as those are some of the most important ones we've ever gotten to cover. And we'll talk about Super Bowl next week onto that episode. I like to keep it onto these two. But I'll just start off with the NFC game. Niners-Packers, as Niners are my team. Forget the AFC. I don't care about the alphabetical order. Now, Jay, what were some takeaways that you had throughout that game, especially on the Niners side?
The biggest thing that I noticed was how the offensive line and the offense didn't lose a beat when Tevin Coleman got hurt. I was expecting them to fall back a little bit, not be the same offense or not move the ball or even score that many points. But even though he went down, the O-line was still powerful. Mostert was still doing his thing. And the defense was doing what they have done all year, was be very, very physical and be very and do what was needed to stop the opposition. Aaron Rodgers, good guy, great quarterback. We all expect great things from him. But in that type of environment, the defense stood up and showed up and said, hey, we know you're great. We know you're going to be a future Hall of Famer. We've seen what you've done, but we're not going to let you do what you do at this point in time.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that completely. I mean, it's always good as a Minnesota fan to see the Packers get dominated in such an important game. Calvin, did you have any thoughts?
No, I mean, it was definitely... 49ers defense pretty much dominated this game. And
yeah,
even as I was watching this, I remember texting you two, and I was like, if 49ers score one more touchdown after a half, it's over. And
I was weary about it. I was weary about that. But when you really think about it, if you have a starting quarterback who just had 8 passing attempts, and I asked you guys, how many points do you think that team scored? And none of you guys are going to tell me 37 points or a number even remotely close to that. And one thing that, Jay, I fully agree with you on was when Tevin Coleman went down, because this is what's happened to the 49ers all year long. It's been a running back by committee of what's the hot hand. And once again, Raheem Mostert stood up to the challenge after the Vikings game. It was Coleman. But then you go into this Packer game, then it's Mostert. It's back and forth. Even Matt Breida at one point. Expect him, maybe in the Super Bowl. He may be the lead back. You don't know who it's going to be. So I definitely loved your point onto that one. And for the Packers, I mean, what is the future for Aaron Rodgers? I mean, he's getting up there in age. Is it possible for him to make a run back to the Super Bowl? Jay, I'll throw it off to you on this one, because that's kind of like the biggest question mark after this game.
I think with Aaron Rodgers, it's not so much him. I mean, yeah, he's lost some weapons, and him losing the weapons, the guys that he has at those positions, the skill positions that he's slinging the ball to, they're just not what he's used to. And you see the same thing with Tom Brady. Now, Tom Brady's fallen off a lot more than Aaron Rodgers, but you see as they get older, they need better players, the skill players around them. It's not the younger version where Aaron Rodgers could be Superman. It didn't matter who was around him. He's going to be the man. Now you're seeing that he's still a great quarterback, but he needs more of those pieces. And if you don't have those pieces around you, and if you don't have 5 guys in front of you that can block a great defensive line, he's not going to be that guy to elude and to be that and to get escaping rushes and things like that. So I think that's what you're finding now with Aaron Rodgers. He can 13 wins this year. Who would have expected that from this team currently constructed? But you see, he still can there's greatness there, but if you don't put the pieces around him and more construct teams that really complement him and where he's falling short, he's not going to win. I don't want to see him. I'm a guy. I don't want to see him go to another jersey. I like the guys that have been with one team their whole entire career. But if he wants to win, maybe that's a thought in his head. Hey, maybe I need to leave Green Bay, go somewhere else to win a ring, or really get into the GM tent and says, hey, man, look, I don't have much time left. You got to change stuff now. I want to win. You got to find a way to get some more skilled players around me, because I'm not the guy that I used to be, but that's just Father Time saying, hey, your time's almost up.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah, I absolutely do, too. I feel like this has honestly been a big problem throughout Aaron Rodgers' career. I mean, think about the weapons he's ever had on the offense. I mean, Greg Jennings, Jordy Nelson was good. You know, can't complain too much about him, but it's like that's one guy out of all of them. I mean, of course, you had Eddie Lacy, who ate his way out of the league, but...
Oh, my goodness, that was bad.
Feast mode!
But, I mean, I feel like it's honestly kind of hard for Green Bay to get these types of players because they tend to be either
They're
middle of the
frugal with
pack
their money.
or... Yeah, and they're always in the draft. They're usually in the 20s at least.
Mm-hmm.
So you're already losing a lot of guys in the first round, and then when you go into free agency, it's like, well, do I want to go to Green Bay for... 3 years of a contender, or do I want to go to Kansas City with 10 years?
Yeah. Yeah, you also don't know what's going on with that coaching staff. I think that's the other thing as well. Is like, is this a one-hit wonder? I don't know what to really take of this team because the inconsistency is the problem. It's either they're great in the first half or great in the second half. You don't get 60 full minutes. Everybody talks about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys all pretty much hit the nail on the head. If he doesn't have the weapons around him, he's not going to have the success like he used to back in his prime. And I think if they didn't have Aaron Jones on that team, they definitely wouldn't have gone 13-3. I think that they would have struggled a lot. So just having him took them a long way. But if I can say that they're going to win a Super Bowl in the next, or whatever Aaron Rodgers has left in his career, I think they will definitely have to add some more pieces on that offense. Yeah, they brought in Zadarius Smith, and maybe that, they don't usually make big signings like that, so maybe that's a sign of what's to come. I mean, make some more big splashes and maybe make some trades to get a higher draft pick like Calvin mentioned. But.
Yeah, no, I agree, and it's the Packers finally realized that you have to have a solid defense to at least work with Rodgers. Because, I mean, Superman's not going to work with mediocre role guys. That's just not how it's going to go. I mean, LeBron always has to have another star with him as well. We saw what happened with him last year on the Lakers. We could say injuries were the reason, but no, really, Alonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram weren't ready for that. They weren't ready for that type of spotlight. And the Packers defense, you can always look at the running numbers. Oh, Mostert had 220 yards. Well, yeah, but that was a special game. The Niners offensive line, yeah, good luck against those guys. But now I kind of want to move it into the AFC game, as this one was a little more juicier to me because I personally actually had the Titans winning this game. I really wanted to see the Titans go all the way, kind of as a Cinderella story of backs against the wall. We didn't even know if they make playoffs. Brett called making playoffs. I said Ryan Tannehill would be better than Tom Brady this year, and dang it, I was right about that, and I'll take that to my grave. Now, this game, it was a lot more interesting than people may think, as Tennessee actually had the lead throughout a good majority of the game until Kansas City clawed their way back in. But, Jay, is this something the Titans could be able to bounce back from and actually replicate this type of success in the regular season next year, or was this more of a fluke in your eyes?
I think it's a sign that moving for Marcus Mariota was the right direction at the right time. His entire career, I know it's going back to the regular season, but if they don't make that move, they don't get to this point in the season. Marcus Mariota has shown that he is not a guy that can lead a team consistently winning and do what's needed. And around that same time, Derrick Henry figured out how to play in the NFL, be consistent. He had good games, and he had been a guy that we knew what he could do, but it wasn't a consistent thing. And he, in that second half of the regular season, that success he had carried that all the way through to the postseason. Well, week 17, I'll start there. Week 17, 180 plus against the Texans on the road, wild card round. I think that was in New England, over 180 yards again in Foxborough. And then the next week against Baltimore, when many people thought Lamar Jackson was the man and nobody could stop him, Derrick Henry once again did whatever he needed. Now, of course, you run into the Chiefs, and Patrick Mahomes is just special. But don't let him being special derail you from the success you had, because going into the season, it was either, in most people's eyes, either the Texans or the Colts winning the division and getting to the playoffs. Nobody thought the Titans were going to be this good because of their quarterback.
Ding, ding, ding.
One change and that one change there changed everything. Changed the morale. Fan base got behind them. And we started to see just one change at one position can change a lot with your coaching staff, your fan base, your players. And then it's almost like momentum was rolling and rolling and rolling. And then you just meet a guy that's just too good, and he does one or two or three special plays that it's like, wow, that's video game-esque, and he's doing it in real life.
No, I agree with you.
I do think the Titans,
I am fully with you on that.
Do it. Yeah. I think the Titans will be better next year. AFC South champion, don't think so, but I do think they'll be in the playoffs, wild card round, and they can't bounce back with the success.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to take away from this year. I mean, really, at the beginning of the year, most people had them as one of the worst teams in the NFL, myself included. Yeah. Even then, like, a lot of people were even taking Jacksonville to possibly win that division.
That one was a little surprising. Like, how are you going to trust Nick Foles with like no regular season success? I'm sorry. Yeah. No. Playoff and regular season are fully different.
But, I mean, going into what they were expected with and what they came out with, there's a lot of takeaways from that are really, really good. And at this point, it's kind of the first time where Tennessee is really seeing progress with that team. I mean, that team has been pretty rough for the last about a decade, really, and now you're actually seeing guys like Derrick Henry produce and be what everyone thought they could be. Now, I mean, Tannehill, I don't think is really the answer. But
hey, don't talk about my man like that, all right? I've been backing him up. I can't back off now, all right?
I'm just not convinced with him, but there is definitely still a lot of good to be taken away from the season.
Yeah, I think that I don't know if Tannehill's the answer either, but I can see them starting week one with him, maybe bringing in someone in the offseason who they think maybe can just bring in some competition and see what happens. But going back to the game, I mean, away from the Titans so much, one play from the Chiefs and the Titans game that I wanted to mention, that we're probably going to be seeing replays of for the next 5 years is when Patrick Mahomes ran up the sideline and then cut back and scored the touchdown. And I think it's just frustrating. That pretty much just sums up football in this century and in this day and age. I mean, those defenders were afraid to put a hit on him.
Yep.
I mean, if he ran up that sideline, say, just even like 10 years, 15 years ago, he would have got wrecked.
The only team in the decade that would have been okay with that was the 2011 Saints on Bounty Gate. That's the only team that would have been totally fine with that. Yeah. Whatever the fine is, don't worry about it. Greg Williams will pay me off. Don't worry. Now, Jay, before I let you go, first off, thank you so much for coming on with us. And also, since we're not going to talk about the Super Bowl till next podcast, I'm giving you a free pass on this. Is this the year Andy Reid gets his first ring, or is this going to be the year Kyle Shanahan redeems himself after the 28-3 blowout?
This is all 49ers this year. Andy Reid and the Chiefs.
Thank you.
It's a special season that they've had. Patrick Mahomes once again, and that run that you mentioned, that was something that I think other quarterbacks in the NFL, running quarterbacks, the guys like to use their legs, need to have one repeat over and over and over. Because what you notice before he takes off running, he actually has his eyes downfield for way longer than normal and realizes, I got to do something. They locked all my receivers up, and he improvises. He eludes a couple tacklers in the backfield, and then he keeps going, and he runs tightrope to the sideline. And like you said, nobody wanted to tackle him. But I do think that defense, Connor, I know you'll love this, that defense is way too good. And Jimmy G, you can say whatever you want about him. I heard someone call him a fraud. I don't care. Someone related him to Trent Dilfer. Okay, great. Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl. And what happened? That team had a really good running game. And they didn't make Trent Dilfer do things that he couldn't do. Now Jimmy G, he's young, he's still learning, but the team is using what he's good at and going off of that and hiding his weaknesses and utilizing the running backs that they have to win and move the ball. And I do think that defense coupled with that offensive line will actually be able to win. Andy Reid, we wanted to get him a ring. I don't think it's this year.
Yeah, no, I agree. And now, Jay, thank you so much for coming on to the show. We got to be wrapping it up onto the Q&As. But thank you for at least giving me a little bit more hope as we're going into the Super Bowl week. You guys can check out Jay's podcast. I highly recommend it. Anchor, Apple, Spotify, the same platforms that we use, for crying out loud. It's easy. Just type into Jay Stefan's show. Jay, thanks for coming on, and we hope to have you on again soon.
No problem, guys. I really appreciate it.
No problem. You have a good one.
Yeah, you too.
Hey, I'm moving on from the championship games. Thanks to Jay Stefan for coming on to the show, by the way. Check out his podcast, The Jay Stefan Show. Anchor, Apple, Spotify, the same platforms that we use. Now, I want to move it in and be more inclusive with you guys, as that's the one thing I feel like we've been missing. And I want to do this segment once a month, if that's okay with you guys.
That's perfectly fine.
All right, I got the stamp of approval. Let's do it. Now, I want to do a Q&A session. Now, I think this is actually pretty entertaining just based on... We have a pretty big following going on right now. I'm super impressed with that for how young we are in this industry. So it's kind of cool to see this going on. So our first question of the day. Now this comes from Jesse Schorber, who's actually going to be coming on our show, Three Bros Sports, on tvdelmarva.com Saturday, 1 p.m. He's going to go on to talk conspiracies. That's a new little segment we're doing. Now his question was, who is the greatest Delaware athlete of all time? Now, I already have a straight-up answer right now. I'll go with Paul Goldschmidt, first baseman for the Cardinals. He was with the Diamondbacks as well, but he's been one of the best first basemen of all time throughout this decade, throughout the 2010s. He's been just killing it everywhere he goes. He's still producing great numbers in St. Louis. But I know you guys may be thrown off by this question. I didn't even prep the guys for this, so we're going straight into it. I kind of like the idea, but I'll give you guys a couple names. So Dante DiVincenzo, he's a guard for the Bucks. I'll count Joe Flacco for this one, as he went to University of Delaware.
I was going to ask, I'm like, do they have to be from Delaware or played in?
You can do either or.
Okay.
You have the option. Now, is there anybody else that comes up to mind?
Man, I mean, let's be real here. Delaware is a small state as is. It's not very populated.
I don't know any like famous athletes that are from Delaware. I gotta go with Joe Flacco. I mean, that's the only one I know. I can't really do this question justice because I'm not informed on it.
I mean, I would say Joe Flacco just because, I mean, he is the best quarterback in Ravens history. Some people would already say Lamar Jackson, but he's been there for 2 years, so can't give him that. And he did win a Super Bowl, so something.
Okay, so I got the list right here.
Wait, are you saying that Joe Flacco was a better quarterback than Steve McNair?
For the Ravens,
Wait,
yes.
so Steve McNair
was a Raven at one point, but I'm saying for the Ravens.
Okay.
Joe Flacco was better.
Didn't he take them to the Super Bowl, or was that the Titans? I don't even know.
No, that was the Titans.
Okay. Well,
Trent Dilfer won the Super Bowl with the Ravens.
Now, I'll at least give out the number one athlete. His name is Randy White. He was from Wilmington. He was the co-MVP of Super Bowl 12 and went to 9 Pro Bowls in his 14-year career.
Wait, Randy White was from Delaware?
He was from Wilmington.
Well, then it's definitely Randy White. I gotta say that.
Now, I'm just gonna keep going with Paul Goldschmidt on my baseball bias here, but yeah, that's Randy White wins. Now, the next one from Sean Gilbert. He's the co-host for the 5 Quarters Down podcast. I think that was the name. I'm sorry if I messed that up, Sean. I don't have it with me right now, but his question is, do you think the players involved with the Astros cheating scandal should be punished like the managers were? Hell yeah. I don't know any other answer, but hell yes, they should. I mean, the players knew about this to begin with. They were for it. Even if management brought this idea to them, they were the ones to say, yeah, I like that idea. Let's do it. What do we got to do? And now if this allegation of they have a wire on their chest, which I don't personally believe, although the Jose Altuve walk-off to go to the World Series does seem a little fishy now off that a slider by Aroldis Chapman. But still, the players should have been punished. I understand the players' union, they get away with it. But there's no way that these guys should not be punished in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. I mean, they knew about it. They supported it. You're supporting cheating at that point. I mean, it's kind of like, in school, if you cheat on a test and another person lets you do it, then you both get in trouble with it.
Yeah, I used to hate that rule. I always kind of thought it was a dumb rule, but I look at it now and it's like, well, both of you guys should be, of you guys should be in trouble for that. If you're going to allow it, then you're at fault. Yeah. Take the blame.
It's guilty by association. I mean, even if you don't believe it, but you're allowing it to continue. I mean, I don't think suspending some of the players would be crazy.
No, that's not the least of it. I mean, a definite fine because you get bonuses for winning the World Series. So whatever your bonus is, that should already be taken as a fine to begin with. I mean, they're multimillionaires. They can afford a couple $1 million. Because, like, even in the NBA, like a $25,000 fine for a technical foul, that's a slap on the wrist. They don't care. They'll just hand it out like it's nothing. But if you really handed like a $1 million fine to a player, they'd be looking at that like, okay, yeah, I'm not going to do that again. That kind of hurt my bank account and hurt my vacation for the off season.
Yeah.
No, like if Pete Rose can get banned from the Hall of Fame and Alex Rodriguez can get a 1-year suspension for performance-enhancing drugs, this I think kind of warrants a little bit more than any of them.
No, I agree. And now moving on with more questions, I got one from Sam Giannotti, a close friend of mine back in California. Now, this kind of ties in with the Astros question. Will Mike Fiers be blackballed by the MLB? And now, for the ones who don't know, Mike Fiers was the player on the Houston Astros who came out and admitted that this cheating scandal was going on. And he went out to the media saying, oh, well, they're doing this. Now, a little bit about Mike Fiers was he was a pitcher, and when they made it into the playoffs that year, he was cut from the roster. He wasn't a part of the 25-man crew to go into the postseason because he allowed the most home runs in the whole league. I mean, a guy who throws 88 on a fastball has an okay 12-6 curve. I mean, it's average. He's just lucky that he's playing in Oakland right now. That's why he has decent numbers. But for him to come out and say that, do you think the MLB has retaliation because that did tarnish their reputation?
I don't know if it's going to be the entire MLB as a whole, but I definitely think certain organizations in there could hold that against him because they might see it as like, well, he's
not going to a contender.
Yeah, you just blew the whistle on a team. How do we know that we can trust you with anything? Because, I mean, let's be real here. There's plenty of other teams in baseball or any sport, really, that cheat. So,
yeah, exactly.
If he's already exposed it once, what's going to stop him from doing it again?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Brad, is there anything you'd like to add on?
I mean, I guess any team that has integrity is not really going to see that as a flaw in his character. Like, just he came out and said it. I mean, someone was going to do it at some point. So
no, I agree. It's kind of funny because Brett, out of the three, he doesn't know anything about baseball. I'll throw that out there. I don't know if you can tell by the answers.
Who is this guy?
But I love whenever I throw Brett in. I'm like, hey, so what do you got? And you're like, I agree.
Just let him hit baseballs.
Just go for it. Now, Brett, I'll reel you into something you do know. Now, Sam, he had a two-parter question, and the second part we'll switch it over to football now. When was Tom Brady's last solid/consistent season? And is he too far over the hill for making a comeback? Now, Sam is a die-hard Patriots fan. I know this personally. Sam, he was gone like 5 years ago. Let's get this out of the way. I mean, he's had decent numbers every year. I give him that. But it's not elite. He's not an elite quarterback. He's over the hill. But it's solid, but he is over the hill. You can tell. You can tell that there's a difference out there. I don't know if that playoff game against Baltimore or the game against Miami didn't show you enough, but he is over the hill. I think this year was the first real year that you saw the significant sign of Father Time coming down and hitting him. So, chance of a comeback with his lack of mobility, I don't see it happening.
Maybe with the right team, maybe I could see it.
But what other team than the Patriots?
I don't know. Just a team with a decent offensive line, some actual offensive weapons. I mean,
Julian Edelman is still a solid player.
He has time to throw the ball. He can still get it done.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he'd be just a mediocre quarterback in any other team. He's not going to elevate your team in any way.
I don't know. I feel like he could be really good somewhere, but I mean, at this point, the guy's in his 40s. He's older. He's well past his prime. So he could still definitely help a team, but if he's going to get a team over the hump, it has to be a team that's already relevant at this point.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're looking at the stats, Kirk Cousins had a better season than him, and last year as well. So I mean, I look, and we're going to say Kirk Cousins is at a slightly above average quarterback at best. Is that kind of the best way to describe him? He's not a franchise guy.
Yeah.
So for him having these basic years, I mean, Ryan Fitzpatrick had a better year than him in 2018. If we're going to look at the numbers like that, I used to be made fun of relentlessly, and by some of the viewers on this podcast, for me saying that Ryan Tannehill could be a better quarterback than Brady this year. I got made fun of relentlessly for that. And I think I finally get the last laugh of this, as we saw what went down when Tannehill became the starter in Tennessee and how Brady's end of the year went down.
Can I just say how lucky you got with that? Like, Ryan Tannehill was just a guy that you
No,
pulled
that's
out
not
of your
luck.
all
It's not luck.
It is. And all of a sudden,
It just feels good to be right. It feels good to be right about something where I can go back and kind of laugh at everybody who gave me flack for it back at ESPN and some people at TV Delmarva. I got some ammo for that. But we'll stick it into the NFL side as well. Now, this is from Tariq Ansari. He's the host of the Sports Report show. He used to work on K-High Radio back in Auburn, California. I know it's a lot of close people, but still some relevance with this. Now, his question is, the Browns, Rams, and Falcons will be getting new uniforms this off-season. Now, if we had to pick a throwback for them, what would they look like? I'll kind of do like one team at a time. And I'll start off with the Rams. I think baby blue would be a really nice throwback for them. I don't know if that was a color they used before, but why not start it? I know, but I think a baby blue would look really good for the Rams.
I don't know. I just want them to go back to the St. Louis look because I'm sick of seeing, one, the old throwbacks from like the 70s, 80s, 90s, which, I mean, it doesn't look bad, but it's not great. Mm-hmm. It kind of gets overdone when you wear it your entire year, and then all of a sudden you're wearing a blue and gold uniform with white horns. It just looks off.
I agree.
Yeah, I think that they'll probably go more in the direction of the blue and white just because they committed to that helmet. It seems that they're probably trying to go away from the St. Louis Rams look, just try to be a different team. But the Falcons, though, I think they could come up with something pretty cool with the black and red. Those are some cool colors.
I feel like they could, but I'm like out of ideas because I know that they went with a gray uniform as the primary color, and it was like black and red, and that's kind of like my favorite jersey look of them all. I mean, my favorite MLB jersey is the Angels alternate ones of the gray with red. I think it just looks sick. But I feel like the Falcons, there's only so much you could do with those three colors, and I feel like they've already done enough. I don't know what they could come back with as a throwback. Maybe, I can't think of another color. Calvin, could you?
Not for Atlanta, another color. I mean, pretty much black, white, red, and the silver aspect.
Yeah, maybe more silver than just gray.
Yeah, but honestly, one thing I kind of like to see out of this is a little bit more of a... You remember what they were in the 90s, the Dirty Birds look, where they had like all black? I'd like to see more of like a black uniform come in with like red. Kind of, they had
maybe like a red outline, a little bit of that, but no white. Yeah, remove all white, and it's just black and red. I could see that.
Yeah, they had something similar to that in the early 2000s with Michael Vick.
Yeah, I think so. I can't remember exactly off the top of my mind, but I know what you're talking about. And then the Browns, I don't think they can make another jersey. Yeah.
They just got new ones.
Yeah, I know, but it's like there's nothing really more you could do. Brown has to be the primary color. You're kind of stuck.
You know how
I don't like being creative with those ugly colors.
You know how you make the Browns actually look nice? You just scrap that organization. Let's start from the bottom and
send it back to Baltimore again.
Yeah, I mean, brown and orange is just like, I understand it's a whole historical thing, and Paul Brown was the coach, but I'm like, that is such an ugly color scheme.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. There's not much more you could really do with it. You can make a couple alternate jerseys, but you couldn't make one to look like a throwback for the Browns. I mean, brown, it has to be primary color with the white. Maybe silver and black, but silver feels like a more modern color in today's jerseys. It's not something you would feel for a throwback one. But I can't come up with any more. Sorry, Tariq, for that. And now, Mr. White, the professor, basically the founder of this podcast, for starting it up and getting us together. His question was, which assistant coach for either team is next up for a head coaching job, and which team could use them? Now, it's talking about for the Chiefs and the 49ers. I think Mr. White's talking about Robert Saleh, defensive coordinator. I have a very simple answer for where he should go. San Francisco 49ers. He is not a head coach for any other team. And quite frankly, I know this sounds very strange coming out of my mouth. I don't even believe he's actually a decent defensive coordinator. All he's done is he came from Seattle and he went to Jacksonville, so he has a little bit of experience elsewhere. But all he did was just try to replicate everything that happened in Seattle. And he went to the 49ers, and I think they were 28th and 29th in his first 2 years as defensive coordinator. And in 2018 was supposed to be a promising year. Coming into into the 2017 season when Garoppolo became the starting quarterback, in that span, the Niners defense was top 10. I think it was top 8, if I'm not mistaken, during that span. Now, 2018 comes around. We added, the 49ers added Richard Sherman, and it looked really solid. DeForest Buckner was becoming a star. Solomon Thomas was looking for a second year. Eric Armstead was supposed to be promising. They had Fred Warner. Nothing. 29th in the league. Ahkello Witherspoon, the only promising player that came into that year, was complete garbage. And now we go into the 2019 season where you basically have all these first rounders, and then you bought Dee Ford, and you end up with Warner developing pretty well because he was promising coming out of BYU. Now, you already have a great front seven, and then you add Quan Alexander to it as well. I don't know. Like, anybody could walk right in and just say, yeah, do what you want. You're a talented front seven. I got a Richard Sherman at corner. Nobody's going to throw to him. My safeties are mediocre, and they've been there since 2015. You don't have to do anything. And also, let's go into the playoffs game against the Vikings of keeping Ahkello Witherspoon out there. And that's not the only time that Robert Saleh has done this. He has done this in every single game that the Niners have ended up losing and also have played close. That Rams game, week 16 against the Rams. Robert Saleh, I wanted to scream personally at Robert Saleh for letting Ahkello Witherspoon guard everybody on the field. And in the playoffs game against the Vikings, the only touchdown that happened was from Stephon Diggs. Who was covering Stephon Diggs? Ahkello Witherspoon. He gave up halfway there, and he tried to trip him.
How do you really feel?
Oh, dude, Ahkello Witherspoon, I get he's a Sacramento product, so I should be rooting for him. But no, I'm not going to root for somebody who doesn't have the talent to be a damn cornerback in the NFL. I'm not. Too bad. Ghosted on the bench. He says, let me do special teams. Yeah, of course you're going to do special teams. That's your only talent right now. Just get off the defensive side of the field. Emmanuel Mosley. It has taken Robert Saleh forever for Mosley to get back in there. And he had almost the same exact passer rate. Quarterbacks had the same passer rating going to Mosley than they did Richard Sherman. That shows you the dominance of Mosley. But Robert Saleh says, I got a bias towards Witherspoon. I mean, those awful decisions, going into the playoffs, knowing that Ahkello Witherspoon is statistically one of the worst corners in the game, you're still going to keep him out there. It makes no sense. His decision-making has been blah at best. He's had a killer front seven, talent-wise. Anybody could be a defensive coordinator and do good.
So to answer the question, not Robert Saleh for you. Is there anybody else that you might want to?
Actually, Matt LaFleur, the brother for Mike LaFleur on the Packers. I think he's the passing game coordinator for the 49ers. And I personally, if the Giants didn't end up signing Joe Judge, I actually thought that he would have been a good fit for New York. But even Miami could be a good opportunity. I think he does have a lot of potential if you come from the Shanahan tree. That things could go really well. I can't remember who the running game coordinator is for the 49ers, but he'd be loved almost anywhere. All right, sorry. I know I had to go on a tangent about Robert Saleh, as I have to get my 2 cents out there, as I've always been told, that's a dumb take because Eric Armstead's good now. It's like, well, he was a first-round pick. Of course he's supposed to be good. Mm-hmm. It's either a bust or you're good in the first round. There's no mediocre. I mean, Solomon Thomas is mediocre as well, and he was the second pick. But is there anybody on the Chiefs staff that you guys could see going elsewhere, especially offensive coordinator?
Honestly, at the time right now, not really. I think it kind of stay the same. I do like LaFleur a lot, but and honestly with Saul, I mean, I don't think he'd really be a good head coach in the NFL. It wouldn't surprise me if someone gives him.
Well, the Browns almost did.
Yeah, he's honestly a guy that I think could essentially trick some NFL teams into actually signing him. But yeah, I feel like if he was going to ever succeed as a head coach, best case is college, just because I mean, he's like you say, he's not necessarily the greatest decision maker, but that doesn't hone his bad in college. And on top of that, he's got a lot of energy for a coach and like that enthusiasm.
No, he does. I give him that. He's a great hype up man.
That, but it's like,
but when you watch a game, you know it. He's not the talented person making those calls.
Yeah, and I mean, when you see stuff like that, it's just that kind of thing doesn't always translate well in the pros. I mean, a lot of guys are there just for a check, and whereas in high school or college, they're there because they want to be there, they want to play, that type of thing. So, I mean, yeah, the enthusiasm is good, but it doesn't always work as well as you'd think in the pros.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I could see a team maybe making a bet on whoever the Chiefs' offensive coordinator is. I'm not sure who it is, but, everyone likes those Andy Reid's.
Hold on one sec. I got it for you. Don't worry, Brett. It's Eric. I don't even want to pronounce the last name. Just Bieniemy. I'm going to say Bieniemy. I think that's the last name. I don't know. It could be whatever.
Yeah.
But, I mean, being a part of the Andy Reid coaching tree, I mean, you look at some of the just for instance, John Harbaugh with his innovative offense, I guarantee he pulled a couple pages from Andy Reid's book.
Yeah.
And for him to have that experience with Andy Reid, I think he could be a head coach almost anywhere.
I feel like the thing that kind of scares people off, though, with the Andy Reid tree is the fact, like, yeah, you have John Harbaugh that came out of it, but Andy Reid won a lot of games, is a great coach.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the ring? That's the one thing
agree.
I think that scares a lot of people off from him.
No, I fully agree with you. Now we got one more question. We're going to switch it over to the third sport that we actually know information about, or Brett's second, and that's into the NBA realm. And Brett, you're going to like this question. Now, is Ja Morant a runaway with the Rookie of the Year award? Brett, I'll start off with you.
I mean, if not him, who? I can't even really think of any other rookies.
I mean, Zion after his debut No, you don't. He doesn't. I'm sorry, a player doesn't deserve it if you miss over half a season.
Unless he does something spectacular,
Yeah.
unhuman-like. But I mean, I would see it being Ja Morant. Just he's been the most consistent in my opinion, and
yeah, I mean,
has been really the only rookie from this class that has really, jumped off the boards in my opinion.
Yeah, and even as a rookie, 17.5 per game, 7 assists, and he's shooting 40% from three. Those three, that's a big indicator of that. When I look at those numbers, I think, he's like a fifth-year player. He's almost there to be coming to that next level, but he's really far ahead for where he's at right now. I know it's second overall pick, but still, I'm quite surprised how great he's been so far. Calvin, how are you feeling?
Yeah, I think at this point it's pretty much his to lose. I mean, with Zion, it's like he did have a really, really good debut, but at the same time, he did miss a lot of time. And like Brett said, I mean, he'd have to do some miraculous stuff. It is entirely possible, and honestly, I could see him getting the bias if he does have a really good few games, like where it's like, he went 3 of 3 from 3 and all this other stuff. And part of that bias, I think, too, is just because he's the number 1 overall pick, and they tend to do that. But at this point, I think most people, at least fan-wise, would vote for Ja Morant.
No, I agree with that. I think Ja Morant, he's basically, it's a landslide right now. He's going to be winning this. And then the final question that Kyle had for us was, does Rookie Year award, is it based on solo performance, or is it like the MVP award for team performance? I really like that question because I think Rookie of the Year is individual, because that's to show their development coming into the league. I don't think it matters about team success. I mean, Donovan Mitchell and Ben Simmons, that argument, that's kind of tough because Utah was already a winning team. They weren't a playoff team, but they were right there, and Philadelphia was expected to be winning with Ben Simmons coming back. So I think that's kind of tough as an indicator if you look at the past, but it definitely should be solo.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they consider how much that player lifts their team to play better, but the players who often win it are those high draft picks that go to teams that have really struggled. So usually, I mean, you mentioned Donovan Mitchell. A lot of the times they play really well, but the team isn't strong enough to make a run in the playoffs or anything. So a lot of the times I think it is based off of performance, just because these players are playing so good, but the team around them is so bad. It's just
Yeah. I mean, let's look at Tyreek Evans. I'll say as a Sacramento Kings fan he was the 4th ever player to average 20 points, 5 assists, 5 rebounds in his rookie year. Now there's one more player, as Luka Doncic, who just joined the company as well. But he's an exclusive thing because he had a 55% true shooting percentage. That's how the Dallas Mavericks tried to exclude Tyreek Evans out of the conversation. So it's LeBron, Magic Johnson, and LeBron James. It's those three. As
You said LeBron twice.
I did. I said Magic. Oh, I did. Magic, LeBron, Jordan. Sorry. It's those three in the conversation of that. So, I mean, Tyreek Evans was almost he looked like a generational talent for being 6'5", with such great handles and such a great finishing ability. And it should be based on solo performances.
I mean, it definitely should be. And honestly, I think it is because it's looked up who exactly has won these over the years. Karl Anthony Towns did it. Malcolm Brogdon, back when the Bucks were not that great. Andrew Wiggins, Michael Carter-Williams, back with the Sixers. Tyreek Evans.
Yep.
And then Brandon Roy.
Oh, yeah.
Another one.
Yeah, we all forget about Brandon Roy, but he was dominant. But sadly, this is going to wrap things up for today's podcast. I want you guys to know, stay tuned for next week. So don't skip an episode. Don't skip next week's episode, as it's going to be the Super Bowl podcast. And we actually got a really special guest coming on. So we got a YouTuber with over 350,000 subscribers. That's more than I'll ever accumulate in followers or friends in my life. Probably all of our lives. Even yours, whoever's listening. Sorry to offend you, but that's a lot. His name is Urinating Tree, and I know it's a funny name. I understand. But you guys definitely have to check this guy's YouTube channel out for the sports analysis he has. If there was anybody to ever come onto the show to talk about the Super Bowl with us, it is definitely him, all right? Trust me on this. I would not lie to you. I promise, okay? But that's going to wrap things up for today's podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to stay tuned for TV Delmarva Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern. We're going to have Benjamin Mehig coming on. He's a beat reporter for the Washington Wizards, and he works for the Washington City Post. So we actually got a verified guest coming on. So it won't be just three guys giving out their opinions. We actually got a guy giving out facts with insider knowledge. But that's going to wrap it up. I'm Connor.
I'm Calvin.
I'm Brett.
Have a good one. Three Bro Sports would like to thank Anchor FM for sponsoring this podcast and Benjamin Tissot on bensound.com for the amazing intro, outro music.
Shut up and sit down.